Hello, this is meant to be an analysis of great technique on versus piano and versus guitar as it relates to this song called Pagan Poetry by Bjork, because there are limitations based on the actual instrument itself, and since there are physical differences, and this video is coming from someone with a background who has more experience on piano than guitar. However, I think that I can at least sort of touch on topics that are probably relevant to people who are wanting to advance in their technique, in not just in guitar or piano, but also the composition itself, like the arrangement that you can create on a piano versus guitar will be different. And in order to do that, you have to become aware of what the differences are in the arrangement. The differences will probably be, which I'm going to highlight using the song Pagan Poetry by Bjork, because there's one great cover that's using a guitar, and then there is this virtuosic cover. Like I consider it virtuosic. It's also great, but it's like virtuosic, which is a little bit more. And the arrangement itself is what I mean. It's not just a great arrangement, it is a virtuosic arrangement. So in order to know how to do these things, you would have to know the difference in technique that allows this to be created, and also composition concepts that people who are in the music space, they probably already are aware about these things, but it is a cool thing to appreciate the differences, the different arrangements you can create either on piano or guitar. So here already from the start, you're going to notice that I layered the piano recording and the guitar recording at the same point, at the starting point, but they are not equal in length. They don't have the same duration, and that's because the arrangement is a little bit besides arrangement. I don't want to talk about that yet. Besides arrangement, there are differences in the rubato of the way that the person in the guitar is playing and the person on the piano is playing. That will cause variation in time of the duration, but also there is a difference in the measures of the arrangement. So one may just be shorter than the other based on the measures of the melody, but also that I'm not sure if the tempo is the same here. It may be that the piano version has a tempo. I'm not sure. I think the original tempo for Pagan Poetry is like 67 beats per minute. And so that usually measures quarter notes. And because we're using a lot of eighth notes and 16th notes, the tempo might vary. So if 67 times 2, that's about 134. So if that's the original Pagan Poetry tempo, and let's say Mr. Pari is playing the original tempo, it says here on the piano sheet music that it's played at the 144 beat tempo. So it's actually a little faster. And so that's what you can notice at first. Also, another thing that you can notice is that the song is originally in C# minor, and on the piano version it is also in C# minor, But when it comes to guitar, it's probably I haven't checked. It's probably also in the same key, but guitar, you can tune it in a way that you don't necessarily have to tune the piano. I mean, you can, but guitar is known for just immediate tuning. And so you never know if the song is in the original key, because if someone were to be performing a vocal performance of the song, they might change the key based on their vocal arrangement. Another thing of interest is that since I have more experience on piano, I'm very interested in how you would essentially here for the, if I'm able to introduce a very beginner type of topic, the way that piano is arranged on the keys is not the same as the guitar, right? That's obvious. But furthermore, when you play piano, you're typically playing the bass line on the left hand and the melody line on the right hand. That is not the same for guitar, so that will impact technique. When you play guitar, the left hand is actually forming chord shapes. It's the fingertips are touching on strings depending their location on the fretboard. And then also by touching the string on the fretboard, you can alter the tuning of the pitch that comes from the guitar. That's just the engineering of it. That's an entirely separate subject, but it is interesting to know the engineering of instruments, but that is a separate subject. Basically, the left hand, based on your technique and your understanding of the fretboard, you will place your fingers on the fretboard in a way that will play the pitches that you want to be playing on the right hand. So on the right hand, this guy is playing the bass line. It's almost very what I like about, well, what you will notice if you can analyze music, what I like about the guitar arrangement is it's very faithful to the original. The piano version is also faithful to the original. However, like I mentioned, the person, whoever recorded themselves playing piano, they made a virtuosic arrangement. The bass line is not the same as the guitar nor the original. The bass line will have a lot of what I consider virtuosic bass lines. The way that they there's a lot of triplets. There's a lot of 32nd notes, 16th notes, and the way that they are being played is with a fast velocity. It's very easy to make accidentals. So that is credit to whoever actually performed this cover of the piano. So on the guitar, the guy is using his thumb to play the bass line because he's very faithful to the original, but also it works out that way. And then his other fingers will be more available or agile to reach the melody notes. It's a good thing that the bass line is very primal. That's the word I want to use. The bass line of this song is very primal. And honestly, the song is about her being married to her husband. And it was publicly known that she wrote the song in that marriage. So she considered this person the love of her life. And so I can understand that the sexuality and the romantic nature of relationships can feel very primal. So it makes sense that the bass line is very primal feeling. It's like a very thud. It's just you feel it in your chest, essentially. It's like if you were in front of a bass speaker, you would just feel it melting your face. And Bjork is really awesome at that. She's able to melt your face with bass lines. Okay, so aside from that, you would, on a personal note that might be interesting to musicians or people who just want to, or maybe people who have kids that play music, the good thing about being a child is that you're typically not injured. You're typically not, your body is fresh out the oven. That's the best way to say it. And so children may be physically weaker, but the ability to access your nerves, your joints, they're pretty fresh. And so that gives children an ability to play in a way that they've never been injured. They've never had to really consider how their body works, how movements even function. That's more of an advanced mentality of like the engineering of the human body. And so whoever created the piano and the guitar, I mean, they knew how to engineer those instruments for the human body. But I'm sure that over time, there have been many people who have had injuries, like in sports, and then it affects your coordination. So what I'm trying to say is, the guitar, what is also good about this arrangement is that the person is excellent in their technique, and therefore I can imagine that either if they've ever had an injury, that they knew how to overcome it. Because if you cannot access the feeling of your neck, the feeling of your chest, the feeling of your arms and your hands, it would be you may not even be able to perform this song in this arrangement. And that does not mean that you are not able to learn about music or music theory or those type of skills. It just means that your awareness of music is probably more advanced than your actual coordination because of injuries. And I'm mentioning that on a personal note because I've had a background of learning of music and recording myself playing piano, but I would love to talk about those things. But the reason probably that I'm motivated to make this video in the first place is because when you're observing great technique, you're also observing the coordination of your body, and you can technically know how to compose music without even really playing an instrument nowadays. You can use a DAW, you can use DAW softwares, and then you're technically not playing the instrument, you're just composing music. And that's cool. A lot of great music has been created that way, but for the purpose of this video, this is about technique on guitar, or just becoming aware and being able to appreciate the differences that goes into the technique of piano versus guitar. And so I'm gonna play the video for now, and then I'll probably come up with something later. So if you notice the, what are they? They're like, they might be 30-second notes. This fast type of trill is not being played by the guitar arrangement. This is what makes the piano one a bit more virtuosic. It is the manner of being able to, the piano allows you to play different octaves, and the guitar is limited in the octaves that you play. That's one thing. And so if you were to look here on the piano version, the trills of the melody are very, very fast, and they're arranged in a very what's the right word? Elegant or graceful manner. So, and it's in a higher octave than the fourth octave. So, that would be possible on piano, whereas on guitar, it's the same as, like, the dilemma here is the same as if you were a music producer and you're writing songs on a DAW system, and yet you never consider the vocal arrangement of whoever would sing that song. Sometimes people will arrange a vocal melody that is too difficult or even impossible for a human being to sing, and I'm including, like, Mariah Carey, for example, because it takes every recording of a song, every arrangement is very specific to that person's vocal ability, but also to their human ability. Like, some songs would just, if you could arrange a song in a way that would just be not easily replicable, it would just not be able to be done live. So this type of virtuosic arrangement of the melody is less likely to come from a guitar, because the way that the piano keys are arranged, and besides that, also, it's almost more expected. There's beauty to simplicity, and the guitar here, I love the strings I love the sound of this person's strings, but there's something beautiful about simplicity as well, and ironic that this song is actually covering the theme of simplicity. But that's adjacent. Essentially, the guitar strings, their limitation of the octaves allows you to focus on the most simple notes that you can cover, and they can come out beautifully. And my perception of what would be beautiful is including the composition, but also the technique. So this guy, at some point, I'll probably mention, like, the way that his right hand is so extremely free of any unnecessary movement or unnecessary weight or tension. It has to be done that way to be able to perform correctly or beautifully. Like, you could not successfully do this if your hand was not refined in this manner. So something that's interesting to notice is that every guitar person that plays a guitar, the arrangement of the chords, or better said, you can choose a lot of different fret positions to create different pitches, but it is important to notice what makes this person's, because this is difficult. There's 3 different topics at the very same time. I'm talking about the arrangement of the composition, I'm talking about the technique, and then I'm talking about the actual location of the instrument. Because guitar needs to be with the left hand, you need to have a chord shape to play the right pitch, whereas on piano you don't need to do that. Because you need to do your left hand in specific chord locations, I'm assuming that this person considered what was best for their body or for the song, because if they were to play higher up on the guitar, it can affect, like, you have to consider gravity, you have to consider your your ability to hold the guitar. The guy is sitting, whereas if he was standing, that involves your entire body. It involves everything on your body, and it probably is more exhausting. So, which can affect where do you want as a player to for your hand to play which fret positions. You could change. I'm aware that some players have preferences, and that's up to them. I don't know why they would prefer playing in certain positions on the guitar versus another, but I would like to think that it's related to their physicality, and that's something to consider when you're arranging something on guitar. On piano, you're not likely going to be standing up forever. I mean, you can, but if you were more of a classical piano player, you're probably going to be sitting. So it's a different body feeling. However, I've had to really reflect on. I essentially have had to, and now I'm sort of speaking on a personal anecdote. I've had to come up with my own medical plan because of the many wasted time and wasted minutes and money, and wasted, essentially the past 14 years of my life have really been wasted on figuring out the engineering of the human body, figuring out people and their perspectives on the human body, figuring out medical system stuff, figuring out medical plans, because I became very invested, or I reluctantly had to invest myself in learning about the human body in a way that is musical, because unfortunately, at least it was my experience, that the medical doctors or physician assistants that were in the area that I was in, with the health insurance availability that you have in the area that you're in, all of that may impact the people that you meet. And it's possible that if I was born a billionaire or millionaire, I could have just gone to somebody that actually is a musical doctor. But those are very few, believe it or not. It is the people that I have found that are good at understanding functional movements. I keep recommending Connor Harris and Strength Side, their channels, those guys. I've known of them for a couple of years now, like not probably more than a couple of years. But when I was first going to doctor visits and complaining that I feel like there's something wrong with my body, there's something wrong with the coordination of it, I have pain in my joints, and it's very unnatural. And then I went on talking to them about, I understood the physics of gravity. At one point I had to wear crutches because of a very, honestly, I don't think that it was that serious, but it was serious enough for me when I was like 14 or 15 to be like, there's something wrong with my foot. And so my parents take me to some, I don't even know what his actual title is, some doctor, and they recommended a cast. However, they mentioned that it was like a hairline fracture, and I would complain of pain when running, and I just thought this is weird, I've never felt this is abnormal, there must be something wrong with me, and therefore I was like, okay, this must be the right thing to do. Like, so if I just get on a cast for a couple of months, 3 to 4 months, then I'll just be fine. Like the problem will just go away. That was a death in itself. The idea that the person was selling was that if I was on a cast, the fracture would be relieved. And somehow in my little teenager brain, I was like, okay, then that just means all my problems are going to be fixed if I just do this thing. and no, unfortunately, for any teenager or young adult that does use their body in athletic ways, at least when it comes to playing an instrument, that did not go the way that they said it would. In fact, it really was the origin of many, many, many sad things in my life. Essentially, now I'm giving a healthcare advice, but this is not advice because you should not take my advice. I'm a person on the internet, but I am aware of this. And even though I have a nursing background, it really all of this may not apply if it's not meant for you. If it's meant for you, then it might apply. If it's not, then it's not. So essentially, people who end up in crutches, I understand that there are different medical plans. Some people have the availability of like a little scooter. You've probably seen people like that, like scooters driving around while they're on a crutches. That is helpful because, well, because of I didn't do that. I didn't have that. Essentially, I was a nerd in school, and books at the time were not electronic. You had to carry them. I probably had a backpack that weighed at least 50 pounds. And so I would have that backpack, and then I got on crutches. So when you are physically positioned on crutches, you are just by default more hunched forward. All of your essentially your and they say that to teach people how to correctly use crutches. But I'm appalled by that concept because, well, better put this way, I don't think that, based on life experience, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of doctors and a lot of nurses, they may tell you something, but they have no idea what you are feeling in your body. And so this idea that they can teach you how to use them, it's a little bit like if a starfish came up to shore and it was dying, and then there was like thousands of them and you only saved one by throwing it back in the ocean. It's kind of like that. It's like, it's very useless, because you will still experience damage whether or not you know how to use crutches, and that's not a good thing. So if you can understand that gravity is king, essentially gravity is always in play. It will always damage you if you don't work with gravity, and it might damage you even if you work with gravity. So when you are hunched on crutches, the top layer, the cushion layer of the crutches will go on your armpit typically. They say that should not be happening. They say that they should be the right length for your body. And they say that you shouldn't rest your body on the crutches, which is true, but you cannot, it's very hard to avoid that if you're transitioning like one step after the other. How are you not going to put your armpits on the crutches? So this idea that the high intellectualism of doctors, if you just or nurses, if you just tell them how to use the crutches properly, then they won't ever have any problem. No, that's not true. I honestly, based on my experience, I don't see how anyone can escape being damaged by crutches. But in my situation, I am aware that because I was carrying a 50-pound backpack, and because I was thrusting myself through a campus throughout the entire 8 hours of my day, or longer, honestly, for like 3 or 4 months, that really actually did damage my joints. And therefore, it's like a teenager is not going to really understand that. Like they probably wouldn't. So I was very like, everything's fine. Like I'm just walking around campus, not imagining that these crutches would damage my body in a way that prevented me from really showing my, what's the right word? My ability to do more advanced things on instruments. Even if I were to know stuff in my brain, it's like a stroke person who has a stroke. Even if you recover your brain and you're able to understand like things that you did before, your body might still have weakness on one side. So there are many layers to playing an instrument, and it's not some. And honestly, you probably, it's better for people to actually become aware of these things and not, because if you want to learn to play piano later in life and any instrument, and you somehow notice that your body feels very weathered in a way, you might feel disappointed that, oh, I can't do this thing. And that is one of the worst feelings in life, that you have a passion for something and yet then you're not even able to access your body. And so therefore, well, it happened to me way younger than like being in an older age, but when I was like a teenager or just a young adult, I had to realize, wait, I can play music and I actually have education in it, but my body is telling me something else. They're telling me that something's going on. So that is really what began me understanding that even that there's a perception of nurses or doctors of like, I don't know. I sort of, what I imagined was that there would be some sort of treatment plan that could just fix my problems in a very easy manner. And that never happened. Maybe it was because I didn't have the right person that probably could have helped, because I don't think any of the people that I knew, maybe they did band in their high school years. You know, the people that I met were probably 10 to 30 years older than me, but that doesn't mean that they've never played an instrument. Maybe they did, but they're so specialized in what they know, and they only know what they know. So it's not like you're not able to really get the best support from people who don't consider, okay, the important part about this patient is that the patient wants to relieve whatever pain they're going through or lack of coordination in their body, and that's what they're after. And they want to understand that more. And sort of they're depending on the doctor or the nurse to tell them something that they feel will change their lives for the better. But because they probably don't play instruments in a way that is, this is really more for people who play instruments seriously, even if it's for a hobby, like just they take their music playing seriously. They will, the people who are in this demographic, it would be to their preference to find some sort of medical professional that can help them with whatever problem they're having physically, but also understands maybe either they or they know someone that understands functional movement, because you would want to address what exactly is it about whatever song that you're playing that you cannot do because you cannot feel your body. If you cannot feel your shoulder, if your shoulder is somehow frozen, or if there's an asymmetry in your posture, it's not enough to just stand up straight. That won't fix it. There is literally an imbalance in your spine, in your muscles, in your shoulder, in the bones themselves, that would never allow you to play well unless you address that first, which is very hard for young people to even. It's hard for older people because they probably are aware of pain that they've had in their body, but it's also very hard for young people because there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of misunderstanding of like, why is this happening to me? And so I guess I adopted over the past 14 years researching and finding people that I considered better fit for what I was going through. And so it's kind of ironic that I'm able to speak on this now because I'm still attempting or successfully attempting to be able to understand uh, the skill set of technique and composition. But because I've had some successes in making my body better, I'm actually able to tell the story about, well, a lot of the problems I've had were just unnecessary. And so this isn't me saying that I can, that it's going to be a pretty picture. This isn't me saying that if someone has an injury when young, that it can be easily overcome. I know there are people on YouTube that have success stories about that, but because athleticism, there's a difference between bodybuilding and looking like a great model and using your body in a way that requires a lot of fine-tuned skills in coordination. And so recently I kind of like figured out some sort of medical plan where the reason why I recommend kettlebells is because the engineering of the kettlebell itself allows you to distribute the weight of the kettlebell in a way that you cannot do with like if you're stuck in place with like a squat machine, you're kind of like stuck in that position. And if you're someone who wants to move or needs to move different parts of their body, you kind of want to be free. You want to be free in space. And so kettlebells allows you to distribute the weight of the kettlebell more evenly on your body. See, this is not something that even the doctor or nurse even ever mentioned to me. And they probably wouldn't because they're not considering medical treatments for people. Like, there are physical therapists and maybe those people can help. But my point is, even if it's a physical therapist, they might be more uh, employed in the capacity of like an elderly or an adult person who has an injury like a stroke. Like they may help you recover your ability to walk. They might help you gain strength, but that is not enough. It's not enough. You can't just find any physical therapist. Any medical person doing this type of medical plan has to understand what goal you want, and they have to be able to help you get to that goal. If not, then you're wasting money and you're wasting time. It just your problem won't be addressed the way that you would want it to. And it reminds me of a story of my a piano teacher I had while I was a young adult. And essentially, she once told me that her elbow had broken, and she was very concerned that would she ever be able to play piano again. And see, these are things that matter because I think she probably thought because I was a student of hers that maybe I didn't understand or have compassion for her in a way that she wanted to feel. Because for her, her entire career, her entire income in her life was music related. So it makes sense that she would be very, very, very devastated that this could really impact her entire life. So I kind of went on a tangent there, but it is relevant because everything about music technique is ultimately, yes, it's about practice hours, but it's about more than that. It's about good practice hours. You can be practicing something and you can just be practicing mistakes instead of practicing well. And you cannot do that if you already have an injury and then you feel a sense of feeling behind because technically you could be a very educated person or a very talented and passionate student, but then you see other people succeeding because of your, and they don't have your injuries, so then you feel like behind, which is not it. That is one of the worst feelings in life. So what was the last thing that I was talking about? The technique thing here. Um, so the guitar player here, this guy, he will have to make sure that he is able to both piano and guitar. People who are those types of players, they will have to be able to become aware of their, if they were to have any imbalances, it probably will show when they're playing. And that's something that I don't, I do think music teachers are aware of this, but because I think that there are music teachers who are they're more advanced than other people, they may want you to focus on, well, practice more, practice more. And that's what they expect. But it seems like it's just a bit more tedious for a another person living not inside your body for them to and I don't mean medical people. Now I'm talking about just music teachers. They themselves may not know exactly what you're feeling in your body. They may not know. They might be able to understand, okay, we can try this out because this might help you coordinate better, but it will take patience, and it will take a very good teacher to take the time to become aware of what you feel in your body, like what is actually limiting you to play well. Because just telling them or just going or just practicing alone is not going to be enough. You would have to find the exact what sort of exercises will actually improve that person's playing because of whatever lack of coordination that they have because of an injury. It's actually a separate thing from just practicing. It's two different things. So this guy has, if you'll notice that his left hand is able to contract and extend in such an elegant and graceful manner that if they ever had injuries, they knew how to overcome that, because the guitar needs. I mean, I have big hands for the guitar, so sometimes I feel like even if I didn't have injuries, it would be more difficult for me, but than piano. And so you just need to be able to really find more gracefulness in the very fine movements of the hand, because if you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to create the chord shape on the guitar fret, and then therefore you won't be able to play the right pitches. That does feel like it's a bit more tedious than piano, but there is more tediousness in piano, in my opinion. If you're a piano player, you would understand that you're essentially playing both bass line and melody, and you don't necessarily always do that with guitar. So there are differences in what they're capable of doing. So if you can see in the notes, the piano lends itself to being able to create. How would you? Well, the difference in the arrangement is that the piano has blocked chords on the right hand, and the guitar player, maybe he is playing some thirds of chords, but there's a lot of single individual notes. And that doesn't mean that it's easier, because it does take a lot of fine tuning of your hand to be able to play those notes well. But what I'm trying to say is, um, guitar, you can do blocked chords, but it's not the same type of, what's the right word? It's not, it would be like starting a fire. Like you start a fire on an oven, or you start a fire using like charcoal and wood. There's two different ways to make something happen. And the piano, to make a blocked chord, I think that's more of like turning on an oven, versus on guitar, it's like starting a fire with charcoal. There's a different type of process, and so one can be easier depending on your body physicality. I don't think one is easier than the other. It just depends on your coordination. So here, notice um, the guitar players, the way that his index finger, the way all of his fingers are able to extend in such a graceful manner. That is part of what makes this a great technique. If you're a good, if you're a good player, you probably will be able to appreciate that. Um, the melody has to be played in a very sensitive and graceful manner, and he does that successfully by being able to, just by the slightest touch of a firm tip on the string, it creates the melody cadence. And you couldn't do that if you were too rough. It's very graceful. Like right here, you can tell that the guitar player had a different arrangement, because it goes da 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 da, and whereas the piano is like, that's not what they were doing. They were doing, was that the triplet part? Let me see. And they're both good arrangements. It just, they're using their instrument to the best of their ability. The best piano playing will take advantage that you're playing a piano. The best guitar playing will take advantage you're playing a guitar. So you have to become very intimate with what the instrument is capable of doing. And when you have that level of artistic expression, that's really what you want. Um, that's really the ultimate goal, when you're playing music. At first, when you're beginning, you're amazed and astonished by the ability that sounds can create moods or feelings or experiences. And that's because the best music performances are able to be selective in what they feel like is artistic for them. What is it that they want to express? So that is the ultimate goal for any instrument player. So notice how much more soft, or the arrangement creates the mood. Even if it's the same song, the guitar player does this it's a very effortless. It does take effort, but there is less tension than you want there to be. The way that he did the little right-handed strumming effect, it was very soft. It creates a mood of intimacy because that is appropriate for the song. And in my opinion, that's just because I've listened to these songs so many times by now, that the guitar version, the arrangement, the guitar arrangement of this song from this guy, Signore Pari, it's a very good version to go to sleep to. It's just very comforting, it's very intimate, and it's very pretty. Now, the piano version, I have gone to sleep listening to the song, but there's more, the arrangement of the triplets, the arrangement of that fast cadence of playing almost is a bit more, it has a different impact. It's waking you up. Like the song says, it wakes me up. So it's interesting how different forms of expression can still express the original feeling of the song, but they're different. The moods are different. And right, so like if you are a piano player, you're going to be very for this song or for this arrangement, you're gonna want to be very present. You're gonna want to be very aware of the playing technique, but also you want to know what is it that you're trying to express. And the person, the way that they arranged it, they wanted to express this feeling of being stimulated, of being awakened, because those notes are so quick that it makes you like, what was that? Like it's very interesting, it's very virtuosic, and so the effect is it's more interesting than it is comforting, if that makes sense. Like the strings of the guitar have a lot more comfort and sympathy. Like strings tend to be that way for some reason, just like string instruments, whether it's a violin, a cello, or a guitar, strings tend to have this feeling of sympathy and warmth and comfort. And even though pianos technically do have strings, they don't have the same sound, like they don't have the same timbre, so they may cause a different impact of feeling. Like, even it's very interesting to note how the chorus is the best part of this song. So it's very interesting to know that besides the guitar being more sympathetic and warm, the actual notes of the melody is arranged in a way that does give off different feelings. The guitar, there's less notes, it's way more simplified, and there is beauty in simple things. So I think that's one way to describe the guitar. The piano version of the chorus, it's way more like, I'm not even sure what the right word to be saying. It's like Bugs Bunny. If you watched him play those piano pieces in the cartoon, it's meant to be bombastic. It's meant to be big. and it's not about being soft or in. There is intimacy, but it's meant to be more. I don't know. The right word is. That's the right word. I don't know if you will know what word I want to use, but it's not a word for children. Yeah. So here's where you want to notice the piano arrangement, where the outro bridge part, there's more delicateness, and what's the right word? There's more staccato. There's a lot of like refined tempo feeling. It's a bit more rubato, and in that rubato state there is a lot of, if you've watched the video, I want to say that the piano version is very similar to this feeling of the image where Bjork gets pierced with a needle on her back, like sewing her dress onto her back essentially. Um, and we can go on about why she felt that was relevant to her expression. I mean, she was marrying someone that she was in love with, and so there was painfulness that appeared, I guess, with being in love. And so I guess that's one way to express feeling like the song itself is pleasant, but she's being pierced by a needle of her marriage dress, because it's a lot of overwhelming pain or feeling. So what I'm trying to say is the execution of the rubato part right here of the piano arrangement, there's like delicateness to it, the way that the tempo itself. That's, I mean, that I'm talking about the tempo, like the dun 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 da da dun dun. It's not straightforward. It's not legato. There's staccato notes. It's very. It feels like you're being pierced. So that's really cool that they're able to be virtuosic in that way. Also, one last thing about the arrangement on the guitar. The the melody is like da-da-na-na, da-da-na-na, da-da-na-na. That is not present in the piano version. Um, what I mean by that is the piano version chooses different rhythms to play, and I think that the what I've said about the piano version, that the impact of those choices makes it more virtuosic. The impact of the choices of the guitar, being able to do that type of rhythm in a very repetitive manner, da-da-na-na, da-da-na-na, it's it's also comforting, and so it adds to that feeling of the arrangement, because it's like if you are sleeping with a fan on, like that sound becomes repetitive and you just get lost in that sound. So I think that that is good arrangement technique, because first of all, you're using the guitar to the best of your ability, but also that particular motif, that particular melodic phrase, if you're repeating it on the guitar, it adds to the warm feeling of the song. So again, this was more of an overview using the song Pagan Poetry by Bjork, and and the way that different stylistic effects that you can come up with regarding technique and regarding the instrument itself, that can impact the arrangements that you create. So hopefully you're able to learn something about that type of thing. I didn't mention this, but I meant to, and now it's relevant to mention it. Essentially, what I had mentioned about the kettlebells is that by carrying kettlebells that are two different weights, you are theoretically, well, you are literally creating an imbalance on your body. But if your body's already imbalanced, then it won't be so bad, because being able to walk with kettlebells, and in my particular experience the past couple of months, I've been using like a 30-pound kettlebell and a 20-pound kettlebell. And the idea is that if you go on for long walks, your body will fail. You will reach body failure, so you will be gaining muscle. But in something of a personal anecdote, I notice that doing that has allowed me to feel what parts of my arms are most injured, or what feels like the most painful. Because I am not saying that this is easy. I am saying it will be uncomfortable and you might have pain, but you would be all right if you don't push yourself too hard. You can theoretically use like a 5-pound kettlebell and a 10-pound kettlebell. I am a tall guy, so I can't lift 30 pounds and 20 pounds. So maybe, thinking of like people who have a shorter stature, or maybe some women who are just not, their first concern, their first priority is not lifting weights. They may not be able to do that. They may not be able to do those pounds. The important part is not the weight itself. The important part is the juxtaposition of fixing the imbalances. If you can carry a kettlebell that is heavier than the other, you will probably be walking and you will reach body failure, and the side of your body that is weaker will fail first. So let's say your left hand or your left arm was the weaker side. Well, and let's say you're carrying the 30-pound one and you just can't do it anymore. You get very easily exhausted like that. Then you can drop the weights and then switch to the less heavy one. And then you can let time pass, and the pain will go away for a bit. And you're still exercising though. You're still using your arm in a way that is addressing the imbalance. Because if you just, let's say if you just were to use a squat rack machine, because technically you can get more strength from that, your body will still be stronger on one side. Like that, you're not addressing the imbalance. You could be squatting, you could be getting stronger, but one side of your body will still be stronger than the other. And so if you're playing an instrument, that does not help. It won't be helpful, because you're either carrying a guitar, you need both hands to do that. You're playing piano, you need both hands to play both bass line and melody. So this is the treatment plan that I feel like has been more helpful, because again, as long as you're able to carry the kettlebells, and if you can't carry them, you drop them, you take a rest, you switch sides, you're technically taking your body, the side of your body, to its limits, and that's really the most that you can do. That's what you want, because then if you don't, you won't address the imbalance. So hopefully that idea will originate good things in people's lives when it comes to recovering coordination in their body. I have not, like I said, I have not, in all of my exploration and research, no one has ever told me this idea that I have. So maybe I'm one of the first ones even to come up with this concept. But for any medical professional that does work with kids or adults that may have injuries, that's a good, I think that's a good consideration to tell them, well, this is how you fix the imbalances so you can play the instrument the way that you want to. I don't know how long this was in, but it was probably over an hour at this point. Hopefully this was a helpful analysis of technique, like I mentioned, and hopefully you can be well. Goodbye.